Catalina Island adventure, 20 miles away from the mainland. There is an island formed from the ocean floor. It has never been connected to the mainland, not even during the Ice Age. So, no animals or plants could naturally cross the ocean. It developed unique biodiversity until humans arrived. Now it's one of the most popular touristic destinations in California. The island is basically a mountain, so doing anything active here is pretty challenging. But most of tourists don't go to the mountains. They prefer to stay in small bay city, rent a golf cars and drive around the tiny place where you can actually walk everywhere. Even though most people stay in the bars and karaoke spots, others prefer to walk across the island or bike. The infrastructure for hiking is amazing. There are many great campgrounds in different parts of the island. The Trans-Catalina Trail seems like a great hiking route, but you can't just go for a hike or a ride because the island is technically closed for that. You only allowed on designated trails, but you need to have a pass first. With biking, it's a little bit less fun than with hiking. Bikes aren't allowed on most areas, but there are a few routes you can take. We rode all the allowed routes on the island in 2 days. To get to the island, we drove to the Long Beach, parked the car, it cost us $75 for 3 days, and took the boat to the island, which was around 75 per ticket. If you want to bring a bike, you need to call and reserve bike spot in advance. After 1 hour on a boat, you can see with really big mountains on a really small island. Our first stop was the general store, where you need to get your permits if you want to hike or ride. It's kind of a process, but basically you need to pay 65 for two people and you get to go. But you need to do it before online and then got your passes in the store. After that, we biked to the hotel, went for evening run, and got ready for the next day big ride. Day one, big ride day. The plan was a big bike adventure, just over 100 kilometers with 2,400 meters of elevation gain across the island. We decided to start at 8 a.m., but matcha first. Apparently, the coffee place took way too long to prepare our matcha, so adventure basically started at 9, which was fine. But we had a lot of fun spots planned along the way, plus some picture time. The original idea was to get back by 7 p.m. before it got dark. After matcha and some pastries, we started the adventure with the pretty rough climb, 5K and 500 meters elevation gain. Luckily, the beginning was all on paved road. Our first destination was airport in the sky. It was a big climb, but the views kept getting better and better as we climbed up. The really weird thing about the bike routes and permits on the island is that you are basically paying to ride on the roads that cars use all the time to get to the airport and back. It's not like you're riding some special bike only roads. They call always area conservation zone, but with heavy car traffic, it feels a little bit weird. So, we made it to our first stop. On the way, we saw the famous bisons. Fun fact, they are definitely not native to the island. They were brought here during a movie shot in 1920s, and honestly, I wouldn't dare to be person to try to remove them from the island. Without predators like wolves, they are thriving, and now their population is controlled by the island. At the airport, we stopped for a tea. It's a store with a lot of things you might need: snacks, drinks, and also they have a fireplace. The weather was gloomy, so we warmed up with tea and some famous cookies. The next stop was Little Harbor and then Two Harbors. It's not an easy ride. It's constantly up and down, and most of the time grade is around 10%. After two harbors, we had planned to ride all the way to the end of the road where bikes are allowed, Parsons Landing, and then return to two harbors. But at some point, we started thinking about turning around early, since the adventure was already taking longer than we expected. When we arrived at Two Harbors, it was really beautiful, nice, peaceful place filled with hikers. There are a general store and little cafe. We got some food and decided to continue our adventure to the Parson Landing no matter what. From Two Harbors, you are only allowed to ride on one road. It's out and back road, and that's what we did. The ride was very enjoyable, especially along the ocean. At first, the road was mostly flat, but towards the end, approaching Parson Landing, there were some steep rough hills. We made it to Parsons Landing. It's the furthest point bikes are allowed on Catalina, and then headed back to Two Harbors. In Two Harbors, we grabbed some water in general store, and for our return trip, we picked a different road. Our goal was to ride every bike allowed row on the island. On that alternative road back, we stopped at Middle Ranch to pet some very beautiful horses and some fun donkey. By the time we reached paved road again, it was already dark. On the way back, we saw a few deers. Actually, they were brought to the island for hunting. When we got back to the hotel, it was, like I said, dark. The next day, we had a more small bike adventure planned. Day 2. Shorter loop. The next morning, I woke up and went for a 10 miles run. Then we checked out of the hotel, dropped our bags at the port, and went for 25 kilometers loop ride on a different part of the island. Even though the first climb was the same, the rest of the loop was different. It was very gloomy day and a little bit foggy. The second loop was much more technical and rough, especially the descent. It felt more like a mountain bike ride than a gravel. To be honest, my arms were sore for a couple of days after. When we got back to the town, we stopped for a matcha at a different place, and it was way better than the first one. At that point, we had officially ridden all the bike legal roads on Catalina Island. We grabbed some food, drinks, picked up our bags from storage, got back on the boat, and returned to the mainland. Riding bikes on Catalina Island was a really nice little adventure, like a small escape from Los Angeles. The island in general, I feel like really good place for hikers, runners, and maybe bikers. Like I said before, there are no many roads to ride on a bike, but it's enough for a weekend or just for a couple days getaway. I hope you enjoy our little story.